Pai nosso,
que estais no céu, santificado seja o vosso nome.
The door opens to smoke that moves like a living thing, soft and purposeful, curling along the ceiling as if it knows where it's going. Blackened furniture, windows blistered white, curtains crisped into shapes that don't look like fabric anymore. And then, bodies. Dozens, arranged as if death had a choreographer. Heads hooded, hands set, robes carefully laid, some in a star, some in a circle, all under the same terrible hush. The smell is candle wax, accelerant, and something coppery that makes your knees soft. This is not a ruin from the Middle Ages. It's the 1990s, and the people at your feet are not medieval knights. They are doctors, bankers, architects, police, parents, children. They did not die in battle, but in ritual. They called it transit. The rest of us call it what it is. In this episode, we're turning over the stones of the Order of the Solar Temple, a doomsday neo-Templar cult whose leaders sold a ticket to the stars and delivered fire. Between 1994 and 1997, 74 people died across Switzerland, France, and Canada, some by suicide, many by murder, under the spell or the gun of two men who treated spirituality like stagecraft. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Every cult needs a salesman. This one had two. A watchmaker who loved control, and a doctor who loved applause. Joseph de Mambro was born in 1924 in Pont-Saint-Esprit, southern France. He learned watchmaking and worked in jewelry, precision, polish, presentation. He liked all three. He drifted through esoteric groups mid-century, old Catholic circles, Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, not so much to find God as to find theater. Robes, candles, hierarchies. He saw not a path to enlightenment, but a backstage. In the 1960s and 70s, he mixed mysticism with petty fraud, moved restlessly, and by the late 70s, had woven himself into Geneva's alternative spiritual scene, courting affluent seekers. The habit that never left him wasn't prayer, it was manipulation. Luc Jouret, you'd have trusted him on sight. Born in 1947 in the Belgian Congo, trained as a physician, homeopath, and New Age lecturer, he could make a room lean in with a single warm sentence. In the early 1980s, he was on a U-rail of esoteric talks, ecology, energy, spiritual renewal, sounding like a TED Talk before TED was a thing. Where de Mambro saw the stage, Jouret saw the audience. They met around the Golden Way Foundation, Jouret's speaking vehicle, and clicked like flint and steel. Jouret the face, de Mambro the puppeteer. By 1984, the two men founded the Order of the Solar Temple, OTS, in Geneva, draping it in myth. Heirs to the medieval Knights Templar, guardians of sacred wisdom, chosen to survive apocalypse and transit to a higher plane. You're going to hear the word transit a lot today. Often described as a world orbiting Sirius, the Dog Star. Headquarters later shifted to Zurich. A leadership council of 33 presided. Regional lodges sprouted across Switzerland, France, and Canada. It sounded important because it was designed to. Not heaven, not paradise, Sirius, a cosmic timeshare, HOA fees paid in obedience. Honestly, if the afterlife requires joining a reenactment society and paying dues, I want a refund. The order did not grow by accident. It recruited like a business. Jouret filled hotel ballrooms with seekers. He pitched wellness and eco-spiritual living, then slipped in Templar Mystique like a secret menu. Around these public lectures, Amenta Atlanta clubs handled logistics and upsold the devoted into private rites, where de Mambro's theater kicked in. There were mirrors and lighting, disembodied voices from hidden speakers, and the pièce de résistance, swords that seemed to glow, materialized by masters. You don't need miracles when you have dimmers and trapdoors. You just need an audience primed to need them. Membership wasn't ragged or marginal. It was professional. Doctors, engineers, architects, business executives, even the well-connected. They paid initiation fees and donated generously. Money sluiced upward, and de Mambro lived large. Chalet life, fine cars, Swiss polish, nice clothing. The organization wrapped itself in Templar aesthetics, robes, crosses, swords, while whispering about apocalypse and a privileged remnant who would survive that apocalypse and then rebuild. So we're very much into prepper territory. Before preppers were a thing, we're very much into supremacy-minded thinking. Loosely organized, yes, but with a powerful center of gravity and secrets that would prove fatal. The mask began slipping in the early 1990s. Members saw cracks, extravagant spending, staged miracles, commands that sounded less holy than controlling, and doubt began to circulate, which is the most contagious thing a cult can catch. De Mambro responded with what tyrants always prescribe: paranoia. He warned of enemies, governments, infiltrators, cosmic forces closing in. Doubts equals treachery. Distance equals danger. These are the things that cult leaders teach. And if fear didn't fix it, destiny would. The order's vocabulary sharpened. Transit is not death. It's an upgrade. I mean, let's be honest. The shit show we're living in right now, anything would be an upgrade. There are letters for that. In 1994, documents divided people into 3 categories. Traitors were to be murdered, immortals were to be helped to death, and the awakened would commit voluntary suicide. So they split their group into 3 categories of people. All were going to die. That year-long spaceship ride is looking better and better. In this cult, bureaucracy meets the afterlife. In Quebec lived Tony and Nikki Dutoit, once committed members. In 1994, they had a baby boy, Christopher Emmanuel. The middle name enraged de Mambro, who had his own cosmic Christ narrative and forbade births he didn't script. So he was angry that this baby was born, and he was angry that these people named the baby Emmanuel as a middle name. In a narcissist cosmology, even a name can be treason. On September 30th, 1994, in Morin Heights, Quebec, cult loyalists broke into the Dutoit's home. Tony was stabbed dozens of times, Nikki was stabbed repeatedly, and their 3-month-old son, labeled the Antichrist by de Mambro's fantasy, was pierced with a wooden stake. I mean, for the love of all that is good. If you ever get to thinking you've seen the craziest and most disturbing thing you could ever think of, head on over to Dark Hearts, and we will remind you that there is no end to the craziness some people will engage in. We laugh to keep from crying over here, you know, and we sometimes dark humor is all we have. So 3 murders staged as a cleansing. These were the first victims of the Solar Temple's endgame. From there, the script accelerates. Within days, the leaders rolled out the death choreography. At Cheery in Canton Fribourg, police entered a farm complex, Femme de Rocher, and found 23 bodies in a room converted into a temple. Robes, candles, plastic bags over faces, some shot, many drugged, incendiary devices, propane canisters, gasoline, had all been rigged to destroy evidence. One body, farm owner Albert Jacobino, had the bag and a bullet wound. No gun nearby. This was not free will so much as staging. Hours later, at Grange-sur-Solvang in Canton Valais, 2 chalets burned. When firefighters got inside, there were 25 more corpses, arranged, robed, some shot, some with hands folded in prayer, all wrapped in the same ritual grammar. Among the dead were the movement's two faces, Luc Jouret and Joseph de Mambro. Switzerland lost 48 people that day. Investigators spoke of a hybrid event, part suicide, part murder, all engineered. Age range, 10 to 73. Fires were triggered by timers. Some victims were bound. The word transit did a lot of work, and so did the guns. The Swiss coverage was blunt. Drugs, asphyxiation, gunshots. Many believed, others were silenced. Officials lined the bodies in front of the ruins to count, to catalog, because the human brain needs order when confronted with orchestrated disorder. 48 lives. It's easy to say 48. It's harder to picture who. One of them was Camille Pillet, for decades a senior executive at Swiss watchmaker Piaget SA, a consummate professional with real power. He became a major benefactor of the order, reportedly giving them millions of Swiss francs. Within the cult, he was recast as the reincarnation of Joseph of Arimathea, channeling messages from other dimensions, including encouragements to transit. Now, remember, every time you hear the word transit in this story, we're talking about dying. He died at Chiri on October 5th, 1994, likely a voluntary participant by then, a man whose success in the real world could not immunize him against an invented one. There was also Giacobino, the Chiri farm owner, suffocated and shot, labeled a traitor in the documents. Proof that, for some, transit meant a bag over the head while someone else wrote your afterlife memo. And beyond them, professionals, doctors, civil servants, and families. The robes are misleading. The lives inside them were ordinary until they weren't. If the world thought the fire burned out in 1994, it hadn't. On December 16, 1995, in a forest clearing near Saint-Péry-des-Chérens in France's Vercors mountains, authorities found 16 charred bodies. Many lay in a sun-star formation around a central point. Evidence suggested vials of sedatives and drugging, followed by gunshots, then fire. 2 members, Jean-Pierre Lardanchet and André Friedli, appeared to have shot 14 others, including children, set the scene ablaze, and then killed themselves. It was methodical, chilling, and repetitive. Among the victims were relatives connected to the earlier Quebec murders, proof that the cult's mythology didn't end with the deaths of its founders. It propagated like a virus. The fuse continued to burn. On March 22, 1997, in Saint-Casimir, Quebec, fire crews found 5 bodies in a white clapboard house, 2 adult couples, and a woman. I found different names for this woman, so I'm not going to use any of them. I think a lot of this information is kind of folklore now, and I don't ever want to perpetrate anything that is misinformation. All of these people were committed members to the Order of the Solar Temple. Early plans reportedly included the children of one of the couples. Apparently, they had tried to do away with these children, but this attempt failed. The children survived, but 3 young children would later be killed in a separate solar temple-linked Quebec incident reported around that time. So this is happening in little pockets all over Europe. The pattern was grimly familiar. Sedatives, propane, and gasoline. There was always a timer and a farewell letter dressing up annihilation as travel plans to Sirius. Truly wacky, very broken thinking, no critical thinking, a total lack of touch with reality, it seems like. This was the final public act of the order. 5 more souls, 3 countries, 74 lives in total. If you pull back from the scenes, the farm, the chalets, the clearinghouse, you see the skeleton of the scam. The order mixed Christianity symbols with Templar cosplay, Rosicrucian Esoterica, I hope I'm saying that right, and New Age apocalypse talk. Members were told that death wasn't death, but initiation, that they would acquire solar bodies and reunite on Sirius. So it appears that some of these people really thought their deaths meant they were going to transition to another planet, and they were going to all be reunited there. I know. Leaders wrote testament letters to fix the narrative. Some would be killed as traitors, some helped. The awakened would go of their own will. Bureaucratic euphemism turns murder into paperwork. Behind the scenes, investigators and scholars cataloged the props, hidden speakers that they would use to pipe these disembodied voices into, mirrored chambers, controlled lighting, and the notorious glowing swords. I really can't get over the glowing swords. I think we all know this by now. Sometimes we overestimate people's ability to stay grounded in reality. You know, any room can become a temple with the right acoustics and lighting. And a con can become a religion if the audience is primed. When police moved through Cherry, they found propane and gasoline wired to detonators, a booby-trapped epilogue designed to erase the inconvenient truths. Membership dues and donations climbed. One high-status adherent, Piaget's former sales chief, Camille Pillet, bankrolled operations to the tune of millions in Swiss francs, keeping the machine oiled. She spent so much money. I found some films on this. They're all in Swiss and they're copyrighted, but people say she spent like almost $9 million. Spirituality, it turns out, spends like cash. When doubts metastasized, Mambro reframed the world as an enemy. Governments, ex-members, infiltrators, threats only he could parse. We see this all the time with cults. The leader says he is the only one who speaks to or for God. He decides who the enemies are going to be. He is usually the person doing the othering and the fear-mongering. Apparently, the group was renamed in late 1994 to Alliance Rosy Cross, but most people still call it the Order of the Solar Temple. The renaming was kind of a final shuffle of the deck as the house burned down. The name change didn't save the cult. It just added one more line item to the fantasy. There was a lot of law enforcement activity, blame, and conducting. After the fires, courts tried to impose shape on the smoke. One public face outside the two leaders was Michael Tabachnik, a Swiss conductor who had delivered philosophical seminars to members and authored texts that some prosecutors argued encouraged apocalyptic thinking. He was tried in France in 2001, acquitted, and then retried on appeal in 2006. He was acquitted again. Grief pressed for culprits. The law, confronted with a fog of belief and coercion, found there just wasn't proof to lock this person up. Not all involvement is a crime. Not every crime leaves a defendant who can stand trial, especially when the architects are dead. Whenever we talk about cults, it's tempting to think that only the naive will stay as things begin to unravel, but that's not always the case. We see a lot of cults with very intelligent people counted among the members. And the order's roles included people with skills and skepticism. And yet, skill isn't armor, and skepticism melts in tight communities where your boss, your spouse, your best friend all nod in time to the same drum. Peer pressure lasts way beyond high school for a lot of people. Cults recruit smart people. They just make them stupid together. Some members recognized the trap and stepped back. A few who spoke too loudly were reclassified, not awakened, but traitors. Well, ask Albert Jacobino how that ended. Ask the Dutoits, except you can't. The documents were logistics dressed as liturgy. Transit lists, roles, who helps whom, who gets a plastic bag, who gets a bullet, and who gets both. My question is, how did they drug the people who were labeled as unawakened and who were labeled as traitors? I mean, did they physically hold people down and drug them before killing them? As I was writing this, I have this image in my head of this room full of people in robes, and some of them don't want to die. So what, are the other robed people attacking them and holding them down to drug them so they can kill them? I don't know, you guys know me. My brain goes weird places. And we laugh because the absurd is a pressure valve. Sirius as paradise, glowing swords as miracles, cosmic Christ made of backstage timing, and a smuggled baby. At an earlier ceremony, they had one ceremony where they made a baby appear. It's so silly. I've said it many times. My inappropriate laughter gets me in trouble. No one's laughing at people losing their lives. I'm laughing at the thought of these people standing around in a mirrored room with robes, with hidden speakers, with disembodied voices that they believe are spirits and glowing swords. These are rituals that would embarrass a community theater, but they became sacraments once you paid for the ticket. That's the alchemy of a con. Turn embarrassment into devotion, doubt into donations, and humanity into fuel. Honey, if your path to enlightenment involves a fog machine, please locate the nearest exit and your dignity on the way out. But we should be careful with the laughter. The ritual circles in Switzerland were not optical illusions. The Vercors snow melted around bodies that used to giggle, frown, and pay bills. In Quebec, the echo of a child's voice ends in a house that smells like gasoline. The ridiculous is only wrapping paper. Inside the box is grief. I think about Tony and Nikki Dutoit and their 3-month-old son murdered. That isn't funny. That isn't ridiculous. 48 people in Switzerland dead, drugged and asphyxiated. 16 dead in France, including children. And then 5 dead in a house rigged with propane and gasoline. Farewell text frames it as transit. Those aren't just numbers. They're families whose Christmas ornaments never came out of the box again. They're families who never sat down at a table together again. These are real lives ended because they joined a cult. I want to talk just briefly about why people fell in and why they stayed. Meaning, the order promised a narrative richer than mortgages and meetings. Be a knight, be a guard, survive the end of the world. If you're tired and smart, that's catnip. If you're a person who lives with a lot of stress and you don't want to go on with life, someone coming along and telling you that you can go out as a knight and be immortal on another planet, if you're already in a dark enough space to not want to live, you're susceptible to that kind of stuff. Cults also offer belonging. Cults feel like family. Doubt makes you lonely. But a group makes doubt feel like betrayal, so you swallow it. You swallow your doubts, and you go on with the group because you have belonging there. It's very sinister. By the time the rituals turn strange, your refrigerator has some potluck leftovers from the same people you're now afraid to contradict. You know what I'm saying? And then there is the control from above. The order's top brass rewrote reality. Try saying that 3 times fast. Transit made murder palatable. Traitor made victims disposable. When the words change, the world changes. And the mouth that controls the words controls the blood. Luc Jouret died with a bullet. Joseph de Mambro, too. The men who convinced others that death was a door took that door themselves, though in a timeline they controlled after assigning roles and igniting fuses. There's a cowardice in that choreography, to script the ending, then step through first, leaving others to clean up the myth with their own lives. Courts searched for living culprits. One did stand trial, twice, Michael Tabishnik, and again he was twice acquitted. The law needs evidence with addresses and timestamps. The order left mostly ashes. So what survives? Not the lodges, not the robes. What survives are the lessons, and I wish they weren't so relevant. Beware the grand story with dues. If salvation requires bank drafts and matching outfits, consider the possibility that you're auditioning, not awakening. Language is leverage. When suicide becomes transit and murder becomes help, check who's holding the thesaurus. Brilliance is not immunity. The order recruited high achievers with full calendars and sharp minds. The con doesn't attack intelligence, it enlists it. Myth can be mirrors and microphones. In Cheery, investigators found theatrics and detonators. Stagecraft isn't quaint when it's wrapped around a gun. And finally, if a leader promises beachfront property on Sirius, ask them about the HOA rules and where they plan to put the parking. I keep thinking about the Dutoits, the way a baby's name could puncture a man's fantasy so deeply that he would order a family's death. About Camille Pillet, a watch executive who sold precision for a living and bought chaos wrapped in Latin. About Albert Giacobino, classified as a traitor on paper and executed like trash. And about ordinary members, parents who paid dues and went to work and then lay down in circles so their children could wake up somewhere better. There's nothing better on the other side of a propane timer. The order promised knights, stars, and rebirth. It delivered plastic bags, bullets, and fire. It promised meaning and gave mechanics, a world built of dimmers and detonators, of testaments full of categories that turn neighbors into targets, all so two men could die as prophets instead of what they were, con men with a flair for pageantry. My friends, if you ever find yourself in a room where the swords glow, the music swells, and the man at the front hints you've been chosen, look for the mirrors, look for the speakers, and then look for the exit. And if anyone tries to sell you a one-way ticket to Sirius, tell them you're not interested in constellations you can't confirm, HOA dues you can't afford, and a moving date that requires a match. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. It helps a lot. This is my podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee, and it's on Apple and Spotify. I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday, and there are some podcast exclusive episodes, things you will not hear or see on YouTube. Don't forget about our fundraiser. We're trying to help solve some cold cases. There's a fundraiser playlist on my channel if you're interested. Are you hanging in there? Are you doing okay? I don't think I'm doing okay lately. Should we do a live and chit chat? Do you guys want to commiserate? I'm always really uncomfortable in lives because I'm like, why would anybody want to sit and talk to me? So I've never really done them, but I don't know what to do at this point. I feel like we all need somebody to talk to. And I want to be that person for you guys if that's what you want. I love you, and I'm thinking of you. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.